March 15, 1959. Durango, Mexico. The Unforgiven film set. What was supposed to be a routine Western production has become a nightmare. The budget has exploded from $3 million to $5.5 million. The original director has been fired. The original screenwriter has been replaced. Richard Burton has walked off the project. And they're not even halfway through filming. Burt Lancaster stands in the desert heat, staring at the financial reports that arrived from Hollywood that morning. The numbers are catastrophic. Every department is over budget, every schedule has been blown, every creative decision has become a battle. Behind him, crew members whisper about whether they'll get their next paychecks, whether the film will even be completed, whether this disaster will destroy careers, reputations, and an entire production company. "How did it get this bad?" asks Assistant Director Howard Jocelyn, looking at the chaos around them. Lancaster's response is bitter. "Because everybody wanted to be in charge, and nobody wanted to take responsibility." The Unforgiven was supposed to be prestigious prestige, a serious Western that tackled important themes, a collaboration between major stars and respected artists. Instead, it became a masterclass in how Hollywood productions self-destruct when ego, money, and creative vision collide. This is the story of the most expensive disaster in Western film history. The production that killed one of Hollywood's most successful independent companies. The film that proved that sometimes more money just means more ways to fail. The project began with the best intentions and unlimited confidence. Hecht Hill Lancaster Productions was riding high in 1957. They were one of the most successful independent production companies in Hollywood, responsible for hits like Marty, The Sweet Smell of Success, and Separate Tables. Harold Hecht, James Hill, and Burt Lancaster had proven they could make both commercial and artistic successes. They had respected relationships with major studios. They had access to top talent. They had the golden touch. When they acquired the rights to Alan LeMay's novel, The Unforgiven, everyone was excited. The book was a serious Western that dealt with racism against Native Americans, an uncommon theme for the genre. It had depth, controversy, and commercial appeal. Perfect material for a prestigious production. "This isn't another cowboys and Indians picture," Harold Hecht told the trade papers. "This is a serious examination of prejudice in America. The Western setting is just the framework for exploring larger themes." The initial budget was set at $3 million, substantial for 1958, but reasonable for a major Western with big stars. The plan was ambitious but achievable. Shoot on location in Mexico for authenticity, hire top talent for every department, spare no expense on production values. Burt Lancaster would star as Ben Zachary, the conflicted rancher. The female lead would be a major star, someone who could hold her own opposite Lancaster and draw female audiences to a traditionally male-oriented genre. The casting process for Rachel Zachary became the project's first warning sign. HHL wanted a name actress, but the role was challenging. Rachel is revealed to be of Native American heritage, causing conflict with her white family and community. It required an actress capable of both romantic scenes and serious dramatic moments. Several major stars turned down the role. Elizabeth Taylor was interested, but unavailable. Grace Kelly had retired. Natalie Wood was committed to other projects. The role sat empty for months while the production team searched for the right actress. Then someone suggested Audrey Hepburn. The suggestion was initially dismissed. Audrey was known for sophisticated comedies and elegant dramas. She'd never done a Western. She had no experience with the kind of physical, outdoorsy role that Rachel required. But Audrey was available. She was between projects and interested in trying something different. When she read the script, she was intrigued by the character's complexity and the film's serious themes. "This isn't just about entertainment," Audrey told director Delbert Mann during their first meeting. "This is about prejudice, about how fear makes people cruel, about standing up for what's right, even when it costs you everything." Mann was impressed by her understanding of the material. Lancaster was enthusiastic about working with her. HHL approved the casting, despite some reservations about Audrey in a Western setting. The supporting cast came together quickly. Audie Murphy as Cash Zachary, Charles Bickford as Zeb Rawlins, Lillian Gish as Matilda Zachary, respected character actors who would give weight and credibility to the production. These forgotten stories deserve to be told. If you think so too, subscribe and like this video. Thank you for keeping these memories alive. The screenplay was developed by J.P. Miller, a television writer making his transition to features. Miller's script was faithful to the novel's themes while adapting the story for cinema. Early drafts received enthusiastic responses from everyone involved. Pre-production proceeded smoothly through 1958. Location scouting in Mexico identified perfect settings. The production design was ambitious and detailed. Costume and makeup tests with Audrey showed she could convincingly transform into a frontier woman. By late 1958, The Unforgiven looked like it would be another HHL success story. Prestigious material, major stars, respected artists, adequate budget, clear creative vision. Everything was in place for a film that would be both critically acclaimed and commercially successful. What nobody anticipated was how quickly everything would fall apart once actual production began. The first signs of trouble appeared before cameras rolled. Director Delbert Mann, who had successfully helmed Marty and The Bachelor Party for HHL, began having second thoughts about the project during pre-production. Mann was primarily known for intimate character dramas. His strength was working with actors on emotional scenes, not staging large-scale action sequences or managing complex outdoor productions. The Unforgiven required skills he'd never developed. "I'm not sure I'm the right director for this," Mann confided to Harold Hecht in January 1959. "This needs someone with Western experience, someone who knows how to shoot in difficult locations." Hecht dismissed Mann's concerns. "You understand the characters, you understand the themes. The technical stuff can be handled by the crew." But as pre-production continued, it became clear that Mann's concerns were justified. He struggled with the logistics of the Mexican location. He had difficulty visualizing the action sequences. His approach to the material was too introspective for the sweeping epic HHL wanted to make. The second problem was budget creep. The $3 million estimate had been based on a straightforward production schedule and standard Hollywood methods. But shooting in Mexico introduced complications nobody had anticipated. Equipment had to be transported across the border. Mexican crews required additional coordination. Weather delays were more frequent and severe. Simple logistics became expensive complications. "We're already $200,000 over budget and we haven't started filming," production manager Frank Caffey warned HHL in February 1959. "The Mexican location is killing us financially." But it was too late to change locations. Sets had been built, Equipment had been shipped. Cast and crew were committed to the schedule. HHL decided to absorb the additional costs rather than start over. The third problem was script issues. J.P. Miller's screenplay, which had seemed solid during development, revealed weaknesses when subjected to detailed preparation. Scenes that read well on paper proved difficult or impossible to film. Dialogue that seemed natural in script form sounded stilted when spoken aloud. Delbert Mann requested script revisions. Miller was brought in for rewrites, but his changes created new problems without solving the original issues. The script became a patchwork of different approaches and styles. "We don't have a script," Mann complained to Burt Lancaster in March 1959. "We have a collection of scenes that don't add up to a coherent story." Lancaster, who had script approval as both star and producer, found himself in an impossible position. He could see the problems Mann identified, but major script changes would delay production further and increase costs even more. The fourth problem was casting instability. Richard Burton had been hired to play Cash Zachary, Ben's brother. Burton was a prestigious addition to the cast, a classically trained actor who would bring gravity and intelligence to the role. But Burton's participation came with conditions. He demanded equal billing with Burt Lancaster, despite Lancaster being both the bigger star and the producer. He wanted script approval rights. He wanted his own trailer, his own transportation, his own support staff. "Burton is treating this like it's his film," complained James Hill. "He's a supporting actor making star demands." Lancaster was furious. He'd built HHL partly to escape the ego battles and power struggles of traditional studio productions. Now he was dealing with exactly the kind of temperamental star behavior he'd tried to avoid. Negotiations with Burton's representatives became increasingly tense. His demands escalated as the start date approached. What had seemed like a simple casting arrangement became a complex diplomatic crisis. By April 1959, it was clear that multiple aspects of the production were in trouble simultaneously. The director was struggling with the material. The budget was spiraling out of control. The script needed major work. The star casting was becoming contentious. Any one of these problems might have been manageable. All of them together created a crisis that threatened the entire production. HHL faced a choice: shut down the project and lose their initial investment, or push forward and hope the problems could be solved during production. They chose to push forward. It was the beginning of a disaster that would consume the next 2 years of their lives. May 1959. Principal photography was supposed to begin on The Unforgiven. Instead, the production was in complete chaos. The problems that had been developing for months finally exploded simultaneously, creating a crisis that threatened to destroy the entire project. The first explosion was Richard Burton's departure. After weeks of increasingly difficult negotiations, Burton's demands had become impossible to meet. Equal billing with Lancaster, script approval, director consultation, a guarantee that his role wouldn't be reduced in editing. "He wants to be the star of someone else's movie," Lancaster told Harold Hecht during an emergency meeting. "Either he accepts the role as written and cast, or he's out." Burton chose to leave. His departure was announced in the trade papers as creative differences. But industry insiders knew the real reason: ego and money. Burton had overplayed his hand and lost. With Burton gone, HHL faced a casting emergency. Cash Zachary was a crucial role. Ben's brother, whose racial prejudice drives much of the conflict. They needed an actor who could hold his own opposite Lancaster and Audrey while being available immediately. Audie Murphy became the replacement choice. Murphy was a legitimate war hero and established Western star. He was available, affordable, and experienced in the genre. But he was also a very different actor than Burton. Less theatrical, more naturalistic, primarily known for action roles rather than complex drama. Murphy can't handle the emotional range Burton would have brought, worried Delbert Mann. The character will have to be rewritten to fit his limitations. But there was no time for extensive rewrites. Production costs were mounting daily. Cast and crew were already in Mexico. Murphy was hired, and the script was hastily adjusted to accommodate his different acting style. The second explosion was Mann's dismissal as director. After months of struggling with the material, Mann finally admitted he couldn't handle the scope of the project. "I'm in over my head," he told HHL executives during a conference call from Mexico. "This needs someone with experience directing large-scale outdoor productions. I'm the wrong person for this job." HHL faced another emergency. Finding a replacement director willing and available to take over a troubled production in the middle of preparation was nearly impossible. Most A-list directors were already committed to other projects or unwilling to inherit someone else's problems. John Huston became the unexpected solution. Huston was available between projects and intrigued by the material's serious themes. He had extensive experience with challenging outdoor locations and complex productions. Most importantly, he was willing to start immediately. But Huston's involvement came with complications. His vision for the film was different from both the original concept and Mann's approach. He saw The Unforgiven as an opportunity to make a serious statement about racism in America, more political and controversial than HHL had intended. "We're not making an entertainment Western," Huston informed the producers during his first meeting. "We're making a film about American prejudice. The commercial elements have to serve the message, not override it." This created immediate tension with HHL's commercial objectives. They'd invested heavily in a prestigious but accessible Western, not a controversial political statement. But with production already delayed and costs mounting, they had little choice but to accept Huston's approach. The third explosion was the script crisis reaching critical mass. J.P. Miller's screenplay, already problematic, couldn't accommodate both Audie Murphy's different acting style and John Huston's more political vision. Huston brought in Ben Maddow to rewrite the script completely. Maddow was a respected screenwriter known for serious dramas with social themes. His approach was more literary and less commercial than Miller's original. But extensive rewrites meant more delays. Scenes that had been prepared for filming were scrapped. New scenes had to be designed, costumed, and staged. The production schedule collapsed as the script was rebuilt from scratch. "We're essentially making a different film than the one we started," admitted James Hill during a budget meeting. "Everything we've prepared is useless. If you want more untold stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Your support means everything to us." The fourth explosion was the budget crisis becoming uncontrollable. The combination of delays, cast changes, director changes, script rewrites, and location complications had pushed costs far beyond the original $3 million estimate. By August 1959, the budget had reached $4.2 million and climbing. Every delay added expense. Every change required additional resources. The financial projections showed the film would need enormous box office success just to break even. "We're past the point of no return," warned the studio accountants. "This film has to be finished regardless of cost, because walking away now means losing everything we've invested." HHL found themselves trapped by their own ambition. They couldn't abandon the project without destroying their company financially. But continuing meant risking even greater losses on a production that seemed cursed from the beginning. As filming finally began in late August 1959, everyone involved knew they were working on a troubled project. The question wasn't whether the Unforgiven would be successful, but whether it could be completed at all. September 1959. Filming finally begins on The Unforgiven in the desert outside Durango, Mexico. But instead of the smooth production everyone hoped for, the nightmare deepens. Every day brings new problems, new expenses, new evidence that this project is cursed. John Huston's directorial approach immediately clashes with the realities of the production. Huston is a perfectionist who demands multiple takes until every scene meets his artistic standards. This approach works for intimate dramas shot on sound stages, but it's devastating for a large-scale outdoor production operating on a tight schedule. Huston is treating this like an art film, complains First Assistant Director Howard Joslin. He wants 15 takes of every scene. "We don't have the time or money for that level of perfectionism." But Huston is inflexible. He's making the film he wants to make, not the film HHL needs him to make. Every day of filming falls further behind schedule as Huston pursues his vision of cinematic excellence. The Mexican location, which seemed picturesque during scouting, proves to be a logistical nightmare. Equipment breaks down in the desert heat. Dust storms delay filming for days. The nearest proper medical facilities are hours away. Simple problems become major crises. Audrey Hepburn, elegant and sophisticated in her usual roles, struggles with the physical demands of playing a frontier woman. She's never worked in such harsh conditions. The heat, dust, and wind are brutal. Her health begins to suffer from the stress and environment. "Miss Hepburn isn't built for this kind of production," observes the on-set medic. "She needs controlled conditions, not the middle of the Mexican desert." But the role demands outdoor scenes, horseback riding, and physical action. Audrey pushes through her discomfort, determined to deliver a professional performance despite the challenging circumstances. The budget hemorrhaging accelerates as the production falls further behind schedule. Every day of delay costs approximately $15,000. By October, the film is 3 weeks behind schedule, adding $315,000 to the budget. "We're burning money like fuel," reports production accountant David Sussner during a panicked phone call to Hollywood. "At this rate, we'll hit $5 million before Christmas." HHL executives back in Hollywood begin second-guessing every decision. Should they fire Huston and bring in a more commercial director? Should they move the production back to Hollywood and abandon the authentic Mexican locations? Should they cut scenes to reduce the shooting schedule? But every potential solution creates new problems. Firing Huston would mean more delays and possibly starting over. Moving the production would mean reconstructing sets and losing location authenticity. Cutting scenes would compromise the story structure. The cast becomes increasingly frustrated with the endless delays and chaotic conditions. Burt Lancaster, usually the calm professional, begins showing signs of stress. As both star and producer, he feels responsible for the disaster, but powerless to control it. "This is supposed to be my company," Lancaster tells Harold Hecht during a heated phone conversation. But I feel like a passenger on a runaway train. Audie Murphy, the replacement for Richard Burton, struggles with the dramatic demands of his role. Murphy is comfortable with action scenes, but less confident with the emotional complexity Huston demands. His performance suffers as he tries to meet impossible expectations. The supporting cast watches the production chaos with growing alarm. Charles Bickford, a veteran of numerous troubled productions, predicts disaster. I've seen films fail before, but this one is failing in real time. November brings the first major on-set accident. During a horseback riding scene, Audrey falls from her horse and suffers severe back injuries. Production shuts down completely while she's hospitalized and treated. The accident investigation reveals safety violations and inadequate preparation. The Mexican location has been cutting corners on safety to control costs. Cast and crew are working in dangerous conditions without proper protections. Audrey's injury forces a complete production shutdown for several weeks. Cast and crew remain on salary while she recovers. The budget impact is catastrophic. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for no footage shot. The accident might be a blessing, suggests James Hill darkly. It gives us time to figure out how to save this disaster. But the shutdown time is used for desperate budget cutting rather than creative solutions. Scenes are eliminated. Cast members are dismissed early. Production values are reduced wherever possible. When filming resumes in December, everyone knows they're working on a compromised project. The original vision has been sacrificed to financial necessity. The film being shot bears little resemblance to the prestigious production originally planned. "We're not making the film we wanted," admits Huston during a rare moment of honesty. "We're making the film we can afford to finish." By January 1960, The Unforgiven has become industry legend, for all the wrong reasons. Other producers use it as an example of how not to manage a production. Agents warn their clients against working with HHL. Investors become skeptical of independent productions. The film that was supposed to establish HHL as a major force in serious filmmaking has instead destroyed their reputation and threatened their survival. March 1960. The Unforgiven is finally approaching completion, but the damage is irreversible. The budget has reached $5.5 million, nearly double the original estimate. The schedule has been extended by 4 months. The production has consumed resources that were supposed to fund HHL's next 3 projects. John Huston, exhausted by the constant battles over budget and schedule, begins making editorial choices based on financial necessity rather than artistic vision. Scenes that would improve the film are abandoned if they require additional shooting days. Character development is sacrificed to reach the finish line. "We're cutting everything that costs money," Huston tells his editor during post-production. "The film will have to work with what we've shot, because there's no money left for additional filming." The editing process reveals the extent of the production's problems. The script changes and cast replacements have created continuity issues. Scenes don't flow smoothly together. Character motivations are unclear. The political themes Huston wanted to emphasize are buried under production compromises. "This isn't the film any of us wanted to make," admits editor Russell Lloyd. "It's a collection of scenes that happen to tell a story." Meanwhile, HHL faces a financial crisis that threatens the company's survival. The Unforgiven has consumed not just its own budget, but money allocated for future productions. They have no resources to develop new projects while waiting for The Unforgiven to recoup its costs. "We're betting the entire company on this one film," Harold Hecht tells his business partners. "If it fails commercially, we're finished." The marketing department faces an impossible challenge: how to sell a film that doesn't fit any established genre categories. It's too serious for action fans, too violent for art house audiences, too expensive for B-movie marketing, too compromised for prestige promotion. "What is this movie supposed to be?" asks United Artists marketing executive Max Youngstein. "We don't know how to position something that doesn't know what it wants to be." The marketing campaign becomes a confused mixture of messages. Some ads emphasize the serious themes and prestigious cast. Others focus on action and adventure. Still others highlight the romance between Lancaster and Hepburn. The mixed messages reflect the film's own identity crisis. Advanced screenings for industry insiders produce disappointing responses. The film is technically competent, but emotionally cold. The serious themes are present, but underdeveloped. The action sequences are adequate, but not exciting. Everything about the film feels like a compromise. "It's not bad enough to be memorably awful," notes one studio executive after a preview screening. "But it's not good enough to be successful either. It's just there." Word spreads quickly through Hollywood that The Unforgiven is a disappointment. Industry insiders who had been watching the production chaos are unsurprised by the mediocre result. The film becomes a case study in how good intentions and talented people can produce mediocre results when the production process breaks down. Burt Lancaster, as both star and producer, bears the brunt of responsibility for the disaster. His reputation as a reliable creative partner is damaged. Future projects become harder to finance as investors question his judgment. "Burt overreached," explains one industry veteran. "He tried to make a prestige picture without the infrastructure to support it." Good intentions don't compensate for poor planning. Audrey Hepburn, despite her professional performance under difficult conditions, is also affected by the film's problems. The role showcases her dramatic abilities, but in a production that doesn't enhance her career. She begins avoiding projects that seem overly ambitious or poorly organized. John Huston adds The Unforgiven to his list of films he'd rather forget. In later interviews, he describes the experience as a lesson in why directors should maintain creative control and avoid productions driven primarily by commercial considerations. The Unforgiven opens in April 1960 to tepid reviews and disappointing box office. Critics acknowledge the serious themes and strong performances, but note the film's lack of focus and emotional engagement. Audiences stay away from a Western that promises entertainment but delivers lectures. The final box office tally is $3.8 million domestic, far short of the $8 to $10 million needed to recoup the production costs. International sales add another $2.1 million, but the total revenue of $5.9 million barely covers the inflated budget, leaving no profit for anyone involved. For HHL, the financial failure is catastrophic. The company survives, but never fully recovers. They produce a few more films, but never again attempt the kind of ambitious independent production that created the Unforgiven disaster. The Unforgiven disaster reverberated through Hollywood for years, becoming a cautionary tale about the dangers of independent production and the importance of controlling costs and creative vision. Hecht Hill Lancaster Productions, once one of the most respected independent companies in Hollywood, never recovered from the financial devastation. Harold Hecht and James Hill dissolved their partnership within 2 years. Burt Lancaster continued producing films, but with much smaller budgets and more conservative approaches. The Unforgiven taught us that independence means nothing if you can't afford to finish what you start. Hecht reflected years later. We had the freedom to make the film we wanted, but not the discipline to make it responsibly. The film's failure had lasting effects on everyone involved. John Huston, despite his distinguished career, was tagged as a director who couldn't control budgets. His future projects faced increased studio oversight and tighter financial constraints. Audrey Hepburn, while her performance was generally praised, became more selective about her projects. She avoided independent productions and insisted on detailed budget and schedule information before committing to any film. "I learned that good intentions aren't enough," she said in a 1975 interview. "A film needs more than talented people and worthy themes. It needs competent management and realistic planning." The disaster also affected broader industry practices. Studios became more skeptical of independent productions, claiming artistic importance. Budget oversight was tightened. The days of giving creative people unlimited resources and trusting them to deliver commercially viable results began ending. The specific lessons of The Unforgiven became part of film school curriculum and industry training. Budget control. Initial estimates must be realistic and include contingencies for location complications, cast changes, and schedule delays. Creative unity. Directors, producers, and stars must agree on the film's vision before production begins, not during filming. Script development. Screenplays must be thoroughly tested and revised before expensive production begins. Cast stability. Major roles should be locked in with ironclad contracts before pre-production investments are made. Location planning. Distant locations require extensive advance preparation and local support infrastructure. Schedule realism. Perfectionist directors in challenging conditions require longer shooting schedules, not optimistic estimates. Modern viewers watching The Unforgiven can see traces of what might have been. Serious themes, strong performances, beautiful cinematography. But they can also see the compromises and confusion that resulted from the chaotic production. The film stands as proof that movie making is both art and business, requiring creativity and competence in equal measure. When either element fails, even the most talented people cannot save a production from disaster. For Audrey Hepburn specifically, The Unforgiven represented a painful lesson about choosing projects carefully. Her next film, Breakfast at Tiffany's, was produced under controlled studio conditions with experienced professionals and realistic budgets. The difference in her experience and the film's success reinforced the importance of production stability. The Unforgiven disaster of 1959 to 1960 killed Hecht Hill Lancaster Productions and changed how Hollywood approached independent filmmaking. It proved that artistic ambition without business discipline leads to expensive failures that hurt everyone involved. Today, the film serves as both cautionary tale and historical document. Evidence of what happens when good people make bad decisions about money, schedules, and creative control. The Western that was supposed to make a statement about American prejudice instead made a statement about American film production. That success requires more than good intentions and talented people. It requires competent management, realistic planning, and the discipline to control costs while pursuing artistic goals. The Unforgiven taught Hollywood those lessons the expensive way. This is Audrey Hepburn. The Hidden Truth. From wartime horrors to Hollywood secrets, we uncover what they've been hiding for decades. Subscribe to discover the dark truth behind the elegant image.